Good evening. History is full of stories that test what it means to be human. Courage, suffering, survival. But what if I told you there was a man who faced 2 atomic bombs and lived to tell the tale? A man who witnessed the sky split open in Hiroshima, and then 3 days later saw that same light again in Nagasaki. Not in fiction, not in myth, but in cold, devastating reality. This is the story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the only officially recognized man in history to survive both atomic bombings. A man who walked through hell twice. Before we begin, let me ask you this. If you survived one of the worst disasters in human history, would you ever go back to that same place again? Let me know in the comments below. Because Tsutomu didn't have a choice. And what happened next is one of the most haunting chapters in human endurance.
Japan, summer of 1945. The Second World War was nearing its brutal end. American B-29 bombers roared through the skies over Japanese cities every day. Factories were bombed, homes were flattened, and millions were starving. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old engineer working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Hiroshima. He wasn't a soldier, not a spy, not a politician, just a regular man trying to earn a living for his wife and infant son back home in Nagasaki. He had come to Hiroshima for a temporary assignment to design oil tankers. On August 6, 1945, it was his last day there. He had just finished his 3-month contract and was getting ready to take the train home. That morning, he left his dormitory early. The air was hot, heavy, and strangely quiet. Around 8:15 a.m., as he walked toward the shipyard, he saw something unusual in the sky, a blinding flash, like the sun exploding. Then silence, and then a shockwave that tore through the city.
A U.S. B-29 bomber named Enola Gay had just dropped the world's first atomic bomb, Little Boy. The explosion instantly vaporized everything within a 2-kilometer radius. Tens of thousands died in seconds. Houses vanished. Shadows burned into concrete walls. Yamaguchi was thrown into the air. His eardrums burst, his skin burned, and his body was covered in radiation. Yet somehow, he survived. He stumbled into a trench and hid as the mushroom cloud rose like a god of fire over the city. He described it later as a giant pillar of purple smoke climbing into the sky with lightning flashing inside it like a storm from another world. He spent the night in a half-destroyed air raid shelter with 2 co-workers. They didn't know what kind of bomb it was. They didn't even know if Japan still existed outside Hiroshima. The next morning, half-blind, burned, and bleeding, Yamaguchi made his way through the ruins. The streets were unrecognizable. Bodies lay everywhere. People walked like ghosts, their clothes burned into their flesh. But somehow, he made it to the train station and found a train that was still running. He boarded it. Destination, Nagasaki.
Tsutomu Yamaguchi sat in silence. His arms were bandaged with scraps of cloth, his face swollen from burns. Every breath hurt. Outside the train window, the Japanese countryside passed like a dream. Green fields untouched by fire. He couldn't believe what he had just seen in Hiroshima. In his mind, one thought kept circling. What kind of bomb could erase a whole city in one flash? When he arrived in Nagasaki that night, his wife, Hisako, and their little boy were waiting. She gasped when she saw him. His skin was blistered, his hair singed. He told her, trembling, Hiroshima was destroyed, completely. We must leave the city." But she didn't understand what he meant. Nobody did. The military and government hadn't yet told the public what kind of weapon had been used. They called it a new type of bomb. And so, Yamaguchi, still dizzy and half-deaf, reported to work the very next morning, August 9th, 1945.
It was a warm, clear morning. He arrived at Mitsubishi's Nagasaki office to submit his report about the Hiroshima project. His boss listened in disbelief as Yamaguchi described the bomb. "It exploded in mid-air," he said, sketching the blast on a sheet of paper. "It was like the sun itself fell to earth." The manager frowned. He didn't believe him. "Impossible," he said. "One bomb can't destroy a whole city." And then, at that very moment, a white light filled the room. At 11:02 a.m., a U.S. B-29 named Boxcar dropped Fat Man, the second atomic bomb, on Nagasaki. Yamaguchi was standing barely 2 miles from ground zero. He was thrown to the floor as windows shattered and the building crumbled around him. Once again, he survived. But the nightmare repeated. Fire, smoke, chaos, screams. He crawled out of the ruins, burned but alive, surrounded by the living and the dead.
That night, Yamaguchi returned home, searching for his wife and son. Miraculously, they were alive. His wife had gone out earlier that day to find burn ointment for him, and she had taken their son with her. When the bomb hit, she had been in a concrete tunnel, shielded from the blast. Had she stayed home, both would have been killed instantly. The irony was cruel. Hiroshima had scarred Yamaguchi for life, but those same scars may have saved his family from the second bomb. In the days that followed, radiation sickness struck him hard. His hair fell out, his wounds refused to heal, and fever raged through his body. Doctors didn't know what to do. They'd never seen radiation poisoning before. But somehow, Yamaguchi pulled through. He survived the unthinkable, twice. And as Japan surrendered a few days later, the war was finally over.
The years that followed were not easy. Radiation continued to haunt Yamaguchi's health. He lost hearing in one ear, developed anemia, and his burns ached for decades. But he never allowed bitterness to define him. He became a teacher, a father, and a quiet voice for peace. For years, he rarely spoke about what had happened, until later in life, when he realized how few people truly understood the horror of nuclear weapons. He began giving interviews, speaking in schools, and even testifying before the United Nations. He said, "I can't blame anyone. The war made monsters of us all. But I want the next generation to know humanity can't survive another bomb."
Let me ask you something. If you were Tsutomu Yamaguchi, if you had faced death twice, seen your city turn to dust twice, would you ever be able to forgive? Would you ever be able to believe in peace again? Tell me in the comments below. I want to know what you would do. Because Yamaguchi's strength was not just in surviving, but in refusing to let hatred take root in his heart.
Tsutomu Yamaguchi lived a long life. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 93. He became the only person officially recognized by both Hiroshima and Nagasaki as a double survivor, a Niju Hibakusha. But he hated that title. He said, "There is nothing special about me. What happened to me should never happen to anyone again." Even in his final years, when he could barely walk, he continued to speak for disarmament and peace.
He told one interviewer, "The world thinks of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as history, but for me, it's still happening every time a new weapon is built." Good evening once again, and thank you for walking through this extraordinary journey. If this story moved you, even a little, take a moment to reflect on what it means to survive, to forgive, and to hope. The story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi isn't just about one man's survival. It's a message to all of us that even in the darkest days, humanity can still choose light. If you believe these stories should never be forgotten, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and share this video so more people can hear Yamaguchi's voice echo through time. Because history is not just what happened, it's what we choose to remember.